Hey guys, welcome back to RHR Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Guys, we're back with another installment of my sit down with Chef Matt. In case you missed it, go back and watch my other sit downs with him. He's so friendly and so knowledgeable and does such a good job of breaking down with Love Meghan Part 2. Flower harder. Anyway, I'm excited for you to see this part. I hope you enjoy it. Definitely leave him your love in the comments. I'll make sure he gets those. Thank you so much for watching. And again, a huge thank you to Chef Matt for your time and your very thoughtful answers to all of our questions. Now let's continue with the sit down with Chef Matt. Okay, so we talked about the tarts. To me, it's weird that she had two different kinds. She didn't address that. They all came out looking the same. Obviously, the magic of the oven. No, the magic of the real chefs next door preparing these foods ready to go.
But that in itself is an embarrassment, isn't it? Because me personally as a chef, if I got told, we're gonna pay you a serious amount of money and we want you to come and do this show for us, and we're gonna pretend like Meghan's cooking everything, but
Yeah.
we want you to actually cook it, and we want you to actually prepare it. But we want you to prepare it like this. I'd be like, no, I don't think I'm gonna, because I don't want my name going on those end credits and
That's
people going, Chef Matt did that.
right.
Oh God, really?
Chef Matt, what's wrong with you? Yeah.
I kind of thought he was better than that.
Yeah.
Like he talks the talk, but he doesn't walk the walk.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Maybe we're right all along, and the kids are in the back,
Mhm.
and the kids are doing the baking.
Maybe so. Yeah. I don't know. These look like Pop-Tarts with onion piles on top, or like hash browns on
Yeah.
top. I don't know. Not tarts. Okay, so there's that. And then there's the final product. So somehow these flat, that you can't even call them tarts, pillows of pastry
Yeah.
and onion folded into these beautiful
Yeah.
onion jam rings.
I think
I don't know.
I don't know if it's just me personally, but I would have preferred it if she had made her own pastry, which is very simple, I've said
Sure.
already.
Uh-huh.
And if she'd have used a very good bought in onion chutney, I would have been absolutely fine with that. And we all know that she's got a range of jars and like jams and preserves, and we could have added an onion chutney to that range at some point, and that would have been great. But
You're right.
there's nothing there that inspires anybody to say, that's a really good idea.
I totally agree with you. So, Chef Matt, since you brought up her jars, I have to ask you, I want to give a shout out to Princess Carparkle, friend of the show, who found out and figured out this about her marmalade. Have you seen her marmalade? Are you familiar with her $9 marmalade? I don't know what that is in pounds, but it's going to be
It's an expensive marmalade, that, isn't it?
It is. It is. And here are the list of ingredients. Organic cane sugar, orange juice, orange peel, organic lemon juice concentrate, and fruit pectin. What are your immediate thoughts on that? Because I don't cook, but that didn't sound quite right to me. We're missing something.
So if you're gonna make a marmalade or any preserve, I mean, the essence is capturing the flavor, isn't it? So you'd the pith is the no for me from a marmalade point of view. So you'd almost want to remove that. So if you, regardless of the quantity that you wanted to make, you'd peel the oranges. You'd take as much of the peel as you possibly could. And I mean, it depends how technical you want to do, but what a nice thing to do is to blanch the pith once or twice before you start to make the marmalade. By blanching it, you're removing the that bitterness from the peel. If you remove the bitterness by blanching it, submerging it into cold water, putting it back into hot water, then all of that bitterness is going to be removed. You then take the actual flesh of the orange, and like the general rule of thumb, in my opinion, when it comes to marmalade, is equal quantities. So if you've got a kilo of orange, you'd use a kilo of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So it would always be equal quantities. From a fruit pectin point of view, natural pectins are always the winner for me.
Okay.
I would always go for like a baking apple as a natural pectin. Um, Not only that, but you're adding another flavor profile to it. I don't particularly conform with powdered pectins. They're very reliable when you talk about mass production, but so is natural pectins as well.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. Sorry, I somebody sent me a picture of the spread. I just hadn't seen it spread out, so I was just putting it on the screen. So that's what this is here. If you wanted to see what it looked like, it's hard to tell in this though. What we're
It
looking
doesn't.
at, it
There's
doesn't
not a
look
great
like
deal to look at
marmalade.
there, does it? But we've hit it with some flowers, so that'll mask the flavor of whatever we're eating, won't it?
It will, and if there's
Yeah.
no substance to the marmalade, I guess it's adding back in the almost like that those bits that you get when you eat marmalade.
Marmalade would normally be a little bit thicker than this as well. This looks
Mhm.
very thin, doesn't it? It almost looks like it's soaked into that bread.
That's what I thought too. It looks like again,
Yeah,
she calls it a spread on some of
yeah,
these. I don't know.
it does. It does look like the bread's taken on some of that moisture, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. Going back here, let's see if there's something else. Yeah, so $9 and it says 12 servings with a serving size being 1 tablespoon. That is not very much. I bought from High Grove and got a I can't remember how big the jar was, but it's pretty decent size of marmalade for I can't remember how much it was, but I this seems expensive for not much.
It's a lot
Oops,
of money,
got it.
that isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it
I'm no
is.
mathematician, but like I'm sure we'll be able to work out how much 12 divided by $9 is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm stalling. Hold on. Let's see. So you're paying 75 cents per bite
it's it's a
on
lot.
that.
It's a lot, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. But it strikes me funny that there is no orange in here. I mean, the peel, but there's not actually orange, and yet she's got a slice of orange leaning up against it. What?
What they're doing is they're cutting out a process, aren't they? So
Yeah.
you've got two variants of marmalade, haven't you? You've got smooth marmalade, and then you've got marmalade with bits.
Mhm.
If you're purely making a smooth marmalade, what you'd have to do is you'd have to use the whole orange.
Mhm.
You'd have to cook it for several hours until you'd made marmalade. You'd then
Mhm.
need to pass, or you'd need to push all of those bits and all of those impurities to make that marmalade smooth.
Mhm.
So by just using the juice, you've done that process before you start the cooking process, because just using the juice, you know it's already smooth. You know that there's no contaminants. You know that there's no bits. And then by adding sugar, sugar is going to dissolve. And then by adding pectin is going to dissolve.
Mhm.
So you're simplifying. You're simplifying a very old technique
Mhm.
just because it's easy. But what you're doing is you're probably not going to get the depth of flavor that all of those bits would naturally create.
Right. Well, you end up with whatever this is,
Yeah.
I think people were calling it fruit goo instead of marmalade.
Yeah.
Ye
I don't think it's I don't think it's something that she should continue doing, because we've not seen one yet that we would say is value for money, or that
Yeah.
is the way our imagination would describe something. So if I said to you jam, strawberry jam or raspberry jam, your
Right.
imagination would instantly give you an image in your brain of what you expected, or your expectations of that product.
Mhm.
And we're not quite hitting the mark, are we?
Mm-mm. That's putting it politely. No, it's not even kind of close. It's disgusting.
We should do the French toast, because we had issues. I had issues with the French toast. I think it was
Sure, yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it was episode 3, was it?
I believe you're correct. Why don't you talk about it? And if it's and while you're talking about it, I will pull a picture of it. Tell me about the French toast. I remember it was the I'm trying to remember. It was the guys. husband's recipe, right? I believe it was, or the
Yeah.
guy's husband would make the bread and then he would turn it into French toast. It was something
Yeah,
like
so
that.
the husband, from memory, I think
Yes.
the husband made bread because it was a good stress reliever.
Yes.
So whenever he was stressed, he would make bread, and he made bread on a daily basis. And the bread, I'm sure, was absolutely delightful. And I'm sure that the recipe was absolutely delightful. The guest that was on the show, it was his
Tan
responsibility.
France was his name. Yes.
It was his responsibility to feed the children in the morning. But the French toast and it's like it's like the thought and the way that he intends it to be is such a nice gesture,
Yeah.
but then the execution of it is so almost backwards in a way.
Yeah.
So French toast is beautiful. I'm sure we're all aware of what French toast is, and when you look at the history of food, when you look at the way that food is treated, there's reasons behind everything. And so the French have got the French toast, the English have got a bread and butter pudding. The idea is that it's a way of rehydrating stale bread. And that is the essence of it. You go back throughout history, and you talk about poverty, and you talk about people not having much money, and it's a way of them being able to embrace and almost say, this bread has passed its best. I don't want to make a sandwich out of it, but what I am going to do is I'm going to make a custard or a slurry, and I'm going to rehydrate the bread in this slurry. I'm going to pan fry it, and it's going to be amazing. And it's the same as us with our bread and butter pudding. We use stale bread. We make a custard or a slurry. We line the pudding dish with his bread. We pour the custard over the top of it. We let it hydrate a little bit. We add some dried fruit, some peel, some sweetener, and we bake it through the oven. It's exactly the same process. What we've done is we're going, well, I'm going to fork my bread, and by forking my bread, I'm going to add air pockets so that the custard can get into it. But as we all know, bread has got air pockets in it naturally, and that's what the proving process does, and that's what yeast does naturally. When you add yeast to flour and water, it naturally starts to come alive, and you'll get these beautiful little air pockets through your bread. That's what's going to encapsulate your custard. To fork your bread, it's not. It doesn't do anything. There's no reason or rhyme or any substance to suggest that forking your bread will produce a better French toast, or anything that I can possibly imagine that could say that technique would work. Again, we're going to make bread, and then we're going to dry it out in the toaster because it's too fresh to make French toast with. Well, don't use fresh bread, use old bread. Look at the science behind what we're doing. If you're going to go on TV and you're going to do something, do it from an educational point of view. Do it where people can learn and they can be educated about food. And not only that, but then there'll be so many people out there that will buy a loaf of bread every week, and they'll throw 4 or 5 slices of that bread in the bin or in the compost, and then they'll buy another loaf of bread, and it's because it's gone stale, or it's because it's not as soft as it once was. If we educate people and we say, don't throw it in the bin, don't throw it in the compost, let's start making French toast. If it's not at its best, then the last 4 slices put in the freezer, and when you've got a full loaf, make a bread and butter pudding. It's exceptionally good. If we can get people on board, and we can say to people, there's a better way, or there's a way of saving money, or you don't have to be so frugal when it comes to your waste. I think that's a massive thing, and we're all going through this crisis at the minute where nobody's got any money, and everybody's struggling, and food is a big thing, and educating people about food, and educating people about the history of food, making them understand that there are other ways, and there's other options for you to be able to use these leftovers and these products that have passed the best. There's so many magical things that have come out of the history of food, that have come from poverty, and that have come from having nothing and starvation, and we've created these amazing things out of these products, but we're forgetting the history of it. we're forgetting the reasons why. And we're at this stage now where we think it's acceptable to go and buy a fresh loaf of bread to make something where he's already told you it's not as good when you use it fresh. So put it in the toaster, make toast first, to then dip it in custard, to then fry it. And you're looking, you go, use yesterday's bread, mate. He's making it every day. Use yesterday's bread. Use today's bread for a sandwich. Use yesterday's bread for French toast. And at the end of the week, whatever you've got left, make a bread and butter pudding for your family.
That's such good advice and you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about it like that. It's not respecting the process. It's trying to make something new for the sake of making something new when it's not needed. And honestly, not that, I mean, Meghan is a lightning rod, but let's just play for a second and say she thought that through and thought about that. You could have something there. Yeah.
I think this is why I could never, going back to the very first when we started to discuss it, and it's like, this is one of the reasons why I probably couldn't do a food show or a food channel, because I think I'd bore people with it, because the way that I approach food and the way I touch food is very different to what most people do. And it's like, for me, my passion comes from history. My passion comes from knowledge, and knowledge is power. And the skills that I've got and the knowledge base that I've got is through my self-education of needing to know the history of what I was producing. And there's no point in saying, oh, I make an amazing ravioli, and not knowing what ravioli is, or there's no point in saying my beef Wellington is the very best if you don't know the history of it. And it's like, for me, it's the journey that you go on, because you find a recipe, you like the food, you create the food, but there's a journey that you go, and it's A to the finish, and it's like A, B, C, D. And that journey, partly of that is remembering the history and the provenance of food, to be able to say, I've gone on this journey, I know the history behind it, and because I know the history behind it, I understand the food a little bit more. I understand the respect that I need to give it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, but I have to correct you on one thing. You're wrong, because everybody loved I think one of the best compliments you got there. You got a lot of compliments for whatever reason. I'm just kidding. The first go around when we did this, because everybody said they loved your respect of the process and the way you respectfully, speak about food and talk about your process. So I think people really like that about you. I think Meghan just doesn't respect it, or frankly give a shit about any of it. She really doesn't. She doesn't care if she wastes. She doesn't care if it's practical. She doesn't care if it's realistic for your average family. None of that matters.
I've always looked at life in general as, if you're going to do it to the best of your ability. If you can't be bothered to do it to your best of your ability, don't do it at all. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it for me, and the way that I live my life, because whatever you do, you should do well. And if you're not going to do it well, it's because you don't care enough to learn.
No, I agree with you completely. Exactly. And what's funny is, again, I'm tying it back to Meghan because that's where we're here, but she used that saying that's been used quite a bit about, why give it 5 minutes if you're not going to give it 5 years? Well, okay, but why are you doing this? Because it's not to you, I'm saying to her, because she clearly hasn't given it 5 minutes. She just doesn't think about the way.
There's no substance behind it, is there? We're still at that point where we haven't got any recipes. We're still at that point where we don't know. Like, everything is like, you're winging it, and I understand that there's a little bit of fun in winging it. But when you've been paid to do a show, and when you've got serious listeners out there that are uneducated, that are interested in, that want to learn about food, and they put you on like a sphere where they look up to you and they say, like, you're doing it, so we want to be like you. And you look at that and you go, you're not providing recipes, you're not putting any substance behind it, and you're not educating people. And I understand that you still want to have a little bit of fun, and you
Sure.
still want to make it light-hearted. But even if you just did it and then you pop something up on the screen and it just said roughly there was 380 grams of onion, and there was 25 mils of balsamic vinegar, and there was 48 grams of caster sugar, and and that's it. And somebody can sort of pause, write it down, and they're educated, and
That's
they
right.
can go, right, tomorrow I'm going to go and buy some balsamic vineger. At least that's giving somebody something. But
Something.
this is very much, I'm a fly by your pants sort of a guy, or I'm just going to
Right.
wing it, or I never measure anything out, and I'm just going to do this, and you're making people believe that that's acceptable, or that they should do the same. And
Right.
it works to a degree, but I'm sure everybody feels the same. You can't afford to throw money away these days. So
Exactly.
if you're gonna wing it and you're at home and you go, oh well, Meghan Markle did. I watched a series and it was episode 3, and I've never made French toast, and I'd love to make it for my kids. Can you imagine winging it? And your kids go like, "This is horrible." Then
It's
that'd
gonna
make
taste like scrambled eggs. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you look and you go, you'd have so much more confidence
Uh-huh.
if they said 2 eggs,
Yes.
60 mils of double cream, 40 mils of caster sugar, and half a teaspoon of cinnamon.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you look and you go, as a parent that hasn't got a great deal of money, you know, a single mum, she's got 2 kids, never made it before. I'm going to treat my kids, I'm going to make this. And that gives you confidence to go, I know what I'm doing. I've got the list. I know what I need to buy from the supermarket. And I know when I get home, I've got some weighing scales and I can weigh this out. And that my children are going to eat exactly the same as what Meghan Markle ate.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It just seems like another missed opportunity for her. I cannot make sense out of. But again, I think you and I are being thoughtful in what we're saying, and that's not what it is for her. I think we're
No,
overthinking it, and that's not what it is for her. Now, from there was a difference from season 1 to season 2. I'll let you speak to it, but I feel like season 1 it was all about look at me, look at my cooking. I don't know. But then this time they don't even really pretend. Now she did take the lead on the onion tart, but mostly she hasn't. I'm 6 episodes of the 8 in. She hasn't really that's the only example that really comes to mind. She hasn't really taken the lead on most of it. They've kind of made her sous chef almost, I think, if that even on a lot of these. Do you feel the same way?
I
Have you noticed?
feel like, I don't know if you're going to hate me for this, but I feel like I found more joy in season 2 than I did season 1. I found season 1 to be very difficult because I found it to be not about the food, not about the craft, not
Okay.
about any of it. I found it to be more of look at me, look at how good I am,
Uh-huh.
and it was a way of almost bragging or boasting. I found season 2. I felt that she'd been humbled a little bit,
Okay.
and I found that. Um, she was there. It was almost that there was a nice relationship from a lot of the guests that she had on the show. I
Mhm.
found that it was more familiar. It was a little bit more friendly, but it was almost like, you know, when you watch these Saturday morning cooking shows where
Uh-huh.
there's a presenter and there's a cook, and the presenter's job is to ask questions, the
Yes.
cook's job is to cook. And I found it to be more moral on those lines, and I found it a little bit easier to watch. Then there were still things that I had massive problems with, and there were still things
Sure.
technically that went wrong,
Uh-huh.
or that wasn't executed the way that I would like to see them from a technical point of view. But I found that the relationship that she's grown into, of
Uh-huh.
saying, look, you know, I've learned from season 1. I've learned that I am passionate about food, and I've got my own passion for food. But I've learned that I'm not an educator on food, or I'm not somebody that should be put on a pedestal and should be looked at in that way. So
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be the presenter. I'm going to be the host. I'm going to be the guest. I'm going to welcome the guests in. I'm going to let them do the cooking and the technical aspect of it. I'm going to be there as a pair of hands because I want to show that I've got willing and that I'm capable, but I'm not going to lead. But while my guest is leading, I'm going to keep conversation lively. I'm going to keep the flow going. and I've just found it a little bit easier to watch.
I don't hate you. I actually completely agree with you. I've had trouble watching it in general because I just find her insufferable, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. I found the guests much more likable this go around. I found that
Yeah.
they're a little bit more down to earth or something. I don't know. For the most part, not all of them, but
Season one. I'll be completely honest. Season one, I started to watch it, and I went in there with open eyes, and I had no expectations. I didn't go in there with any malice, and I didn't go in there as in I'm going to deliberately hate this so as I can give Jen some content.
no,
I've never done any of those
yeah,
things.
I never want
I
that.
went, I went in there with complete open eyes, wanting it to be better, and I do think it was better. Season one took me by surprise because season one got very close to me going, this is going to be a waste of my time,
Yeah.
because what happened was, I think we welcomed some guests on. We spent a very, very long time making flowers, doing
Yes.
flower arranging. But what was interesting was that we got to learn a little bit about the people that were on the show. So that was kind of interesting. We
Yeah.
then went and made a salad from the garden, and we cooked a bit of steak on the barbecue. And I just thought, really, like season 2, episode 1, and
Yeah.
the best that you've done, the very first thing that you do is you go and pick some, apparently you've got like a world renowned chef with you, and you've got the very best that guy could have come up with for your show was making a salad. And was it a bit of flattening or something? It was like a flattening steak or something,
I
wasn't it?
think so. Yeah.
I can't remember the cut of the steak, but
I can't either.
I think it was like a brevet steak or a flattening steak, and basically they're not good cuts of meat. So you've got good cuts of beef, haven't you? You've got the ones that we all know.
Sure.
So you've got fillet, you've got sirloin, you've got ribeye, you've got rump, you've got all of those things. Then you've got the brevet of steak, and you've got the flattening steak. The bits of meat that are they're harder to digest. They've got a different molecular structure. The grain's very dense, and there's no fat content that runs through it. So as a general rule, you make a very acidic marinade, and you marinate it you marinate the meat in this very acidic marinade, and that's to break down the enzymes of the meat. And you leave it in there for a couple of hours, and the idea is that this strong acidic marinade is going to break down the enzymes. It's going to change the molecular structure of the meat, and it's going to change the fibers of the meat. So when you cook it, it's going to be a little bit more tender, and you're going to enjoy eating it a little bit more. And I just thought to myself, you didn't explain any of that. You've made a fucking salad.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 2, episode 1, and I've spent nearly 35 minutes of my life watching you make a salad, and the only bit that anybody could have been interested in was the steak, and you missed it. You made the marinade. You didn't explain why you'd made the marinade.
Right.
You didn't go into what went into the quantities of the marinade.
Nope.
So it's that if you liked eating steak but you couldn't afford to buy good steak, you now had options. You now could have gone to the butcher. You could have bought that cheap cut of steak. You could have made that marinade. You could have left it in the fridge while you was at work. You could have come back. You could have grilled it, or you could have barbecued it, and your family would have had a good steak at a cheap, affordable price.
Right. And I've watched so many episodes, they blur together. I believe he was Korean, so he was honoring his heritage. Like, it really could have been interesting flavors, and they kept saying it smells so good. That tells me nothing as a viewer from home. I need to know what's in it to make it smell good.
There's no amount of pausing your TV that lets you view that recipe, because it's a splash of this, a splash of this, and then they get a spoon and they put it in the mouth, and everybody's fucking high-fiving each other like they've just run a marathon, and they've created this absolutely amazing thing. And all the viewers are just sat there going, what? I've got no idea what you just did.
I feel like I'm just watching friends have dinner. That tells me nothing, like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I genuinely thought, because before the guest came on, there was talking, And one of the guys that was there, he was saying, "Oh, this chef's his food's absolutely amazing, and I always have a box of his ramen noodles in my cupboard at home, and
Yes.
I eat them regularly." And I just thought, this, if this guy turns up and he starts making his own noodles, like, that is going to be an amazing episode. And he made
Yeah.
salad. He made salad with steak.
He made salad.
He
And
made salad.
here's a funny side note. I actually said at the time, this is I didn't even realize this was that chef. I have those noodles in my pantry.
Yeah.
And I love them. They're the sesame noodles. My kid loves them. So, and
But
she's picky on flavors.
everybody that knows him,
Uh-huh.
that's what people associate him with. So
Mhm.
even if he brought his brand of noodles into
Yeah,
Meghan's house, and he went into the garden and he picked a load of salad leaves and vegetables and
that's right.
tomatoes, and he made the most amazing stir fry, and then he
Mhm.
chucked in his ramen noodles, and he pan-seared his flat iron steak, and he cut it into strips, that
Oh,
would
it'd
have
be
been an absolutely
amazing.
amazing. And you
Yeah,
look and you go, now we're talking, this is serious cooking. But we didn't do that. And then
that's it.
straight after that, we made the meringue, didn't we?
We made the meringue, and the big waste of space in this episode. It was just so much. We're best friends. You're best friends, but it told me nothing
No,
about
no,
anything except for they made this guy come out and arrange flowers, and he was a good sport. But I mean, again, in real life, I'm friends with your wife, so it's me. It's me if your wife and I were hanging out talking about what we talk about, and you're just there like, okay, like
exactly.
what? What am I here to cook? What are we doing?
But
Like,
it's
nope,
it's
we're gonna
like
make you flower arrange. What?
it's like
That's what they made him
meringue.
do.
I've made a lot of meringue in my life, and
Mhm,
meringue, there's a massive amount of skill that goes into it,
mhm,
and everything down to temperature, down to cleanliness, all of it plays a massive role in the
mhm,
science of making it. Um, and there's so many things in the making of that meringue that you look and you go, they made two different variants of meringue, and they used, but the actual basis of both meringues were identical. So you look and you say, on the left we had a KitchenAid, and on the right we had a KitchenAid. We put the exact same amount of egg in both KitchenAids, the
mhm.
same amount of sugar syrup, the same amount of everything, and we beat the holy shit out of it. But then you look at what came out, bearing in mind they're identical machines, they're identical ingredients. The one
Oh,
on the left came out and it was really puffy and it was really light, and
mhm.
it had loads of volume in it. And then you look at what came out on the right, and it was flat and it was
Yeah.
dull, and there was no sheen to it.
Yeah.
And but then when they went back and they started to make the schmores,
Oh,
you could see that one of them was like really thin, and then one
yeah.
of them was really puffy. And again, it all comes down to the science and the understanding of food, and understanding the reasons of X, Y, and Z.
Mhm,
And so the reasons behind it is that when you make meringue, you can't have fat, and fat is a big no. So,
mhm.
say for instance, tell me if I'm boring you.
No, not at all.
So
It's I know
if you
exactly what you're talking about. Real quick, in case people didn't see it. So the idea was to make homemade s'mores. They were gonna make this meringue and then make graham crackers, which I found unrelatable because I don't know about over there, but over here you can go buy them pretty cheap from the grocery store really quick, and my kid is happy. So,
yeah.
but please continue. Tell us about it. Yeah, no, it was interesting because they got to flavor their own. It's meringue, but they were calling marshmallows. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So essentially, if you start the process, you've got your eggs. If you started to crack your eggs and you want to separate the egg from the yolk, right?
Mhm.
And when you make meringue, you can only use the white. You can't use the yolk.
Okay.
If, say, for instance, you cracked 10 eggs, and on the 10th egg, when you cracked it, you got a little bit of yolk into the white. The
Mhm.
entire batch is ruined, and you need to start again,
Really?
because
Okay.
that's how ridiculous it is.
Uh,
Because that tiny the yolk is where the fat is, isn't it? The yolk is the protein. So
Sure.
you say the yolk. If the smallest amount of yolk went into the white and you tried to whisk it, you wouldn't get the volume, and it would still make a peak, but it wouldn't make meringue and it wouldn't make marshmallow. But then it's like the temperature of the bowl is important, because if it's too hot, it won't get the volume. If there was any grease in the bowl, grease is a big fat. Any fat is a big no-no when you talk about marshmallows or when you talk about meringue. The one on the right, I think, if memory serves, was vanilla and turmeric.
I believe so.
The one on the left was
peanut butter. Is that right?
burnt butter and something else,
Oh,
wasn't it?
Gotcha.
Well, butter is a fat.
Yeah.
And we've just agreed that you can't put fat into a meringue or a marshmallow because it won't get the volume. And you're looking, you go, as professional people that are invited to go on a cooking show, regardless of the amount of money that you're going to earn on that cooking show, how far are you prepared to sell your soul? Because when Meghan suggested burnt butter, somebody should have said, that's going to affect the quality of the meringue, or that's going to affect the quality of the marshmallow. Right. But we made out as if it was fucking normal. We made out as if there was no issues. And you look at, there'll be people out there that will have made meringue, that will have made marshmallow, and now in their brains, it's okay to add butter.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I didn't know that, and they didn't explain that. Why would I know that? So it's so interesting that you're going through that. And
there's two completely different variants, isn't there? There's one of them that's got loads of volume, loads of air, and you can see how puffy it is. And then there's one that's very flat,
like flat and kind of leaking out the side.
It doesn't. When they're transferring it into its mold for it to cool down and set before they slice it. When you look, the first one that they put in, it's almost too much for the bowl. And then the second one that they put in, the one that's got butter in, it almost doesn't fill the bowl. Right. And you're looking, you go, but you used exactly the same amount of food. You use the same amount of egg. You use the same amount of sugar.
Right.
Why isn't it the same volume?
Right. So what's interesting about that is the two chefs. So the one guy was the one we're talking about with the noodles and the steak, but the female chef, I cannot remember her name. She is over. I believe it's called Milk Bar. So it's a dessert. I mean, this was her lead project. Why wouldn't she step in and say, I love that idea, but here's why that won't work. That kind of thing.
That's my whole point, because like I've said previously, we all need to stand united as chefs, and I would never want anybody to think that I'm saying anything negative about the chefs
not at all.
that we're discussing, because I think that each individual is very talented.
Sure.
And that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is that because they're on camera, they're almost being manipulated. Because they're on camera, when Meghan suggests something, they almost don't feel like they can say no to it. So they're almost going along with it, even though in the back of their minds, they're going, this isn't the best idea, or I'm not so sure that we should put butter in this, because from past experience, I know that grease is going to affect the volume. Or to say, well, okay, we'll go with that. But just to let your viewers know, this one's not going to have the volume, but it's still going to be a marshmallow, but it's going to be a little bit more dense because we're adding fat. And then everybody knows. And it's like, everybody's talented. He's a very famous chef. She's a very famous chef. They're both very, very good at what they specialize in.
Sure.
But don't feel the pressure from anybody to ever make you deviate from your skill or your passion.
Right.
It's like you earlier asking me about, would I sell my soul for dried fruit? And you look and you go, I'm not sure I would.
Yeah.
But, but it can't be money driven. It can't be through fear of not wanting to say no.
You're right. Absolutely. Because that does no favors to the show's credibility. It does no favors to the viewers.
No.
I'm a viewer and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I can't make it like they did on TV, that kind of thing.
Well, it started to worry me because we got through season 2, episode 1, and
Mhm.
we did the marshmallows with the graham crackers, and
Mhm.
then we went directly onto episode 2, and
Mhm.
then I think we made cheese biscuits, didn't we?
We
And I was
did,
just, and
yeah.
I was just like, really? Like we
Yeah.
made graham crackers. We made graham crackers in the first one, and then we're making cheese biscuits in the second one, and the
Right.
two are very, very, very similar
So
in
for our
what they are.
American friends, cheese biscuits are like Cheez-Its, little cheese crackers, basically, right? That's what they were making, I
Yeah,
think? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But they made them, didn't they?
Yeah.
But then it's like, even the execution of, I thought when they did it and they brought out the mix, and they added the cheese, and they chilled it, and they went off and did something. Then
Yeah.
they come in and they said, right, we cut it in half, so we've each got a piece, and we're going to put it in between two pieces of parchment with
Mhm.
and we're going to roll it out in a rolling pin. And I thought, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because
Mhm.
that's the first bit of technicality that I've seen that is useful for the domestic person to learn. A
Right.
sheet of greaseproof paper, put your dough down, put
Uh,
another sheet of greaseproof paper down on the top, so the dough isn't touching anything other than greaseproof paper, and then
mhm.
you roll it out. And I thought, now we're getting somewhere, and we're learning, we're teaching. This is good. But
Yeah.
then the execution, and it's like, then we got a pasta cutter out, and we started cutting through dough with pasta cutter, and you could
Uh-huh.
see that the dough was too big for the pasta cutter because it got all over the handle, and
Mhm.
you're like, oh, that were a bit of a car crash.
Yeah.
And then what would have been good is if we'd have got some dowels, and because so when
Uh-huh.
I do things like that, I normally put a dowel at either side, which is a little piece of wood, but that
Mhm.
dowel gives me the perfect size that I need to roll to. So if I put the dough in the middle, the dowels at either side of the rolling pin, the
Mhm.
rolling pin can never go lower than the dowels will allow. So I
Oh,
know
that's
that
smart. Yeah.
I know that when I roll the dough out, it's going to be a perfect thickness all the way around.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
then I would trim the edge, so I had a nice neat edge around,
Mhm.
and then I would transfer to the tray. I would make sure that the tray didn't have any sides on it, so that I could get to the edges. I would then measure it out and score it and bake
Mhm.
it. And
Brilliant.
what it was like, there was really rough edges. That, like,
Mhm.
none of them was measured out. None of
Mhm.
them looked like uniformed.
Correct.
And
Uh-huh.
I'm sure that they tasted great, but you just
Sure.
like just put a little bit more effort in, trim it down. Don't use a dish that's so deep, and then you're not going to struggle to score it. You're not going to struggle to finish it and baste it and all. And it's all those little things. And there should have been somebody on the show to guide them and just to
Yeah.
say, do it like this, do it like
Exactly.
this.
Well, just then you explained it to me with no camera on you, and I completely can visualize and understand what you're saying and thinking, "Oh, why didn't I think about that? That's brilliant. Anytime I need
Yeah,
to evenly roll something, I would
you
never have
just
thought of that.
you
So
can you
now
can
it's with me. Uh-huh.
you can buy them from the shops. You can buy them from the
Great.
shops. They're actually a real thing, and
Mhm.
it's like, and they just give you accuracy, because we all know what it's like. And it's like, if your predominant hand is right-handed,
Mhm.
and you're using a rolling pin, that's where all your strength is going to go.
Yeah.
But your left hand's not going to have that same amount of pressure. So we've all been there when we roll something out, and one side will be thinner than the other side, and it's
That's
because
right.
we've used the dominant hand, and that's where the power's coming from. So
Mhm.
you get an uneven roll.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. See, you've already given us more tips in this recording than she did the whole of both series.
It
That's
made me laugh. It made me laugh when she started pulling out all these, like, multitude of rolling pins. And I
uh-huh.
think I think throughout the episode, all the episodes that we watched, we saw about 4 different rolling pins, and it's
We
just like,
did.
who's got that many rolling pins at home? Like, it's like, I've been a chef for like 24 years, and I own one rolling pin, and that will be the only rolling pin that I will ever own in my life.
Yeah.
Like, there will be no point in my life where I'll go, oh, I'm going to make such and such, but I need a different rolling pin.
Yeah, absolutely. One time I had to improvise at home. I just remember I did not have a rolling pin and I needed one. So I got a bottle. I had a bottle of wine and I literally just
It's happened to all of us. It's
you,
happened to all of us.
you so
Another good one for that is if you haven't got a rolling pin for whatever reason, if you just use like a roll of cling film.
oh, smart. There you
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
if you use a roll of cling film, and the nice
Mhm.
thing about when you use a roll of cling film is when you've finished, unroll it, throw the cling film away, and you've got fresh cling film underneath.
Perfect. I didn't even think about that. See, you've already taught me so much more than this damn show. So, all right, tell me what you thought. Let me know your comments. There's a little bit more to go. Thank you so much, Chef Matt, for your time and your very thoughtful answers. I sincerely appreciate it. Guys, thanks for watching. If you want to send him your love, put him in the comments. I'll make sure that he sees that. And again, thank you so much for sticking with me. I can't wait to bring you more stuff like this. I love having him on and just having a good back and forth and just picking his brain on all this stuff. It's really interesting. I wish Netflix would give Chef Matt a show. I think they should. All right. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks so much for being here. Have the best day. Bye bye.